Stations remembered: SAR, Hoyleton, Halbury and Kybunga. Introduction. In this publication, we continue tracing the railway line from Balaclava towards Brinkworth and Gladstone. The first two stations, Halbury and Hoyleton, were both on the former narrow gauge Port Wakefield to Hoyles Plains tramway. Opening in 1870, it was the first isolated country railway line north of Adelaide and was built to service an already established agricultural district. Using Port Wakefield as its port, produce could be railed from Hoyleton and Halbury and Balaclava for shipment. This was initially done by using horse-drawn wagons, but it changed to steam fibre from 1876 as loads increased. The Port Wakefield to Hoyleton tramway was laid to the rail gauge of 3 feet 6 inches, and it became the nucleus of the South Australian Railways Western Division. In 1876, the line was extended from Hoyleton to Blyth, followed by a further extension to Gladstone in 1894. During the latter part of 1982, while the railway line from Adelaide to Port Pirie was being converted to standard gauge, sections of the line were closed, and for a short period trains were rerouted through Balaclava, Blyth and Brinkworth. This necessitated a number of reversals of direction and produced some interesting train workings. Quite a few of these trains were illustrated in this book, and they give a false impression that the line was really busy around this time. In this picture, Alco 936, a rerouted Port Pirie to Marland train via Brinkworth. 936 holds a rerouted Port Pirie to Marland train via Brinkworth, photographed as it climbed into the yard at Balaclava on 20th November 1982. Halbury, opened 1870, closed 1981. The first station on the line after leaving Hoyleton for Port Wakefield was Halbury. The district was named after George Hall, Governor Goller's secretary and son-in-law. Originally, the siding was referred to as the Auburn Road crossing, situated between Hoyleton and Balaclava. On 14 December 1875, under the provisions of the existing Wastelands Act 36, allotments at Auburn Road crossing were auctioned to form the township of North Halbury. The government platform was also extended for the receipt of wheat approaching the township site. In 1884, a new siding was under construction, and an extension to the current siding had been requested by locals. A deputation to the Commission of Railways on 18 June 1890 made a request that a shelter shed should be erected for the convenience of residents. In 1891 annual report, the new siding had been laid. The existing siding extended, the road metalled, and the new shelter shed had been erected. By the time there was also the construction in hand for 3 maintenance workers' cottages. In 1898/99, working timetable lists Halbury as being open for passengers and goods, and that sheep could be loaded and unloaded by a portable sheep ramp. On 23rd of September 1912, instructions were issued for a number of stations including Halbury, Kybunga and Anama Hart, advising railway staff that a box containing a red flag inlet had been provided for the purpose of enabling intending passengers to signal the drivers of the express trains so that they will stop to allow them to join. The instructions to the public regarding these flags and lamps were painted on the lid of the box. The caretaker at Halbury Station had been withdrawn on 5th of August 1918, and from then on it was worked as a siding without resident staff. On 25th of September 1922, Weekly Notice number 38 of 1922 advised a porter could issue tickets to Hoyleton, Blyth and Brinkworth, and on the down and Balaclava and Adelaide on the up. The counting station was still Balaclava. At the time of gauge conversion, electric staff instruments were located at Halbury, and trains could be crossed at the station, but porters had to ascertain the length of the train before arranging a crossing. The length of the siding between stop blocks was 725 feet. However, these arrangements were only temporary, and the electric staff instruments were removed from Halbury on 9 December 1925. The section became Balaclava to Hoyleton. On 1st July 1925, Halbury became an accounting station for parcels and tickets. P.R. Phillips was appointed to the position of station master at Halbury on 26 October 1925. On 9th of November 1995, Halbury was classified as a station with resident accounting staff. Freight, livestock, and parcels traffic could be consigned to or from Halbury, paid or to pay. In 1927, the station became unattended. Hamley Bridge to Gladstone electric staff block working was discontinued on 28th of May 1928, and train order working was introduced. During 1947-48, there were a couple of railway instigated fires on the Halbury district. The fire first caused 10,000 pounds of damage and began with a spark from the steam locomotive hauling a passenger train from Gladstone to Balaclava. In late 1948, over 600 sticks of timber used to keep stacked wheat clear of the ground was destroyed by fire in the Halbury railway yards due to a fettling staff burn-off. On 12 September 1949, the Balaclava District Council approved the suggestion by the district clerk to have a fire truck following train from Halbury to Saints when the fire hazard was extreme. In 1966, the station facilities included a side-loading sheep race, a 3CWT heavy portable ramp, and a portable with a ramp, and a platform with a ramp. The station was unattended for goods and consignments, and all charges had to be prepaid. While it was an unattended siding, trains could still cross there. On 12th of July 1981, Halbury was closed for all goods and parcel traffic but remained open to pick or set down passengers. It was closed for train working requirements. Late the following year, the station saw a flurry of activity while Port Pirie line trains were diverted via Brinkworth during rail standardization work. Apart from the declining goods traffic on the line, the passenger service to Gladstone was also to cease around the same time. It survived the transfer of South Australian country railway lines to the federal government, becoming part of the newly formed Australian National, but the service was withdrawn on 6 November 1982. There was only one train each way per day departing Gladstone for Adelaide early in the morning and returning in the evening. Originally, blue rail cars were used, but during the time period of this book, it was the domain of the Bluebird rail cars. In later years, often just a single Bluebird power car with a trailer car or refrigerated van were used. On 15th October 1987, Australian National closed the section of line between Balaclava and Gulnair. A few years later, a tender was called for the dismantling, purchase and removal of track components, sundry steelworks and bridges along the line. The tender closed on 27th of February 1991, and by the end of the following year, all the rail and most of the sleepers had gone. As the railway formation slowly returned to the nature, there was a talk of making a section of the former trackbed into a rail trail. Following local fundraising efforts and a grant of $105,000 from the state government, the project became a reality and was completed in early December 2016. The trail was an extension of the Balaclava Trail from the Balaclava Golf Course to Halbury. It was named the Shamus Liptrut Cycling Trail in memory of talented local cyclist Shamus Liptrut, and was only made possible through the accumulated efforts of a number of groups, including the Shamus Liptrut Cycling Trail Committee, Green Army Balaclava Area Committee, and Wakefield Regional Council. The official opening took place on 4 April 2017 at 12 p.m. on Cross Street, Halbury. While there is no longer a railway at Halbury, the permanent way has been retained for the future generations to enjoy. Hoyleton, opened 1870, closed 1982. In 1886, an act to construct the Port Wakefield to Hoyles Plains tramway was introduced into Parliament, and it received assent in January 1867. From Port Wakefield, the line travelled inland to Hoyles Plains, section 102 in the hundred of Hall. The township of Hoyleton was established in 1869 and was also named after a local landowner. By the end of 1869, construction of the tramway was just about complete, with the goods shed, 3-ton crane, and horse stables ready for use. On 4 January 1870, the line was leased to Mr. Paul Badcock, who was engaged to operate the tramway. Services commenced on 11 January 1870, and there were sidings at Saints, Duns, and at the Hoyleton/Auburn Road crossing 4 miles south of Hoyleton. The first trial of steam power was made between Hoyleton and Balaclava on 8th of March 1876. That year also saw the extension of the railway to Blyth completed. Although the original terminus of the railway from Port Wakefield, Hoyleton became just another stopping point when the line was opened to Blyth and later extended to Gladstone. In 1922, Hoyleton lost its resident track gang as it became part of the Blyth section. This was followed by gauge conversion in 1925 and major changes to signaling and safe working over the next 2 years. Here are some pictures of Hoyleton, the old station. In November 1927, the station master was classified as grade 6, but on 1st of October 1931, the station became unattended. A portable sheep ramp was installed on 29th of November 1937. On 17th of April 1952, an engine derailed when the front wheels of the locomotive left the track, holding up rail traffic for some time. A second locomotive from Marland was dispatched to assist with the derailing to enable it to proceed to Gladstone. Introductions were issued on 2nd of September 1957 that the caretaker station agent must weigh mail bags. In 1966, station facilities included cattle race, water and turf, side-loading sheep race, 3 CWT heavy portable ramp, 30 CWT crane, and a platform with a ramp. The station was still unattended, but water was available and trains could still cross. The station was closed on Saturdays and Sundays, but open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 noon and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. A station agent was in charge. On 19th of April 1968, severe flooding occurred across the northern part of South Australia, with 1.5 inches falling at Halbury in 25 minutes, temporarily cutting the Halbury to Hoyleton railway line. Looking at the facilities in the yard around the time, the original station building was burnt down in a fire and replaced by a small and very basic structure around 1960. The earlier station building contained the station master's residence, numerous rooms and cut buildings. There were originally 2 railway corridors to the north of the station building, but these were demolished in the 1970s. The historic goods shed was completed late in 1869 and has the contractor's name and date of 1870 inscribed into it. Although used for multiple purposes at times, it remained basically unaltered throughout its life and is now the most significant and substantial structure remaining from the original Port Wakefield to Hoyles Plains tramway. To commemorate its historical importance, a plaque was mounted on a cane nearby as a bicentennial project. It was unveiled by Dr. Affleck on behalf of Australian National on 16th of April 1988. The plaque records that the construction of the goods shed had originally been carried out by Mr. S. Saunders of Port Wakefield. Unfortunately, since that time, the building had been allowed to fall into disrepair. Unless some remedial work is undertaken, it will eventually become just another ruin. Also on the eastern side of the track, just north of the goods shed, was a platform and crane. The platform wall was rebuilt with a new concrete facing during the mid-1950s. The crane was removed around 1978, but the platform survives. To the north of this platform was a wheat shed. The actual structure came from Cook's Plains in 1936. The shed was leased to SAC in 1968, but removed in 1973 after another facility had been built to the south of the goods shed. On the 1972 SAR map, it listed Hoyleton as having the SACBH bulk grain silo. An area was also set aside in 1960 between the wheat shed and sheep pens for handling bulk and super phosphate. The working timetables of July 1970 and July 1971 both listed the station as being run by a station agent. The hours of attendance were closed on Saturday and Sunday, open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 noon, then 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. The working timetable dated 2nd July 1972 also gave the same opening hours, but the following day the station agent was withdrawn and it became an unattended station. In 1980, the SACBS silo was listed as having a capacity of 10,900 tons, and in 1987 was described as being of horizontal steel construction. But by 1990, the silos had become road serviced. In July 1977, Hoyleton was listed as an unattended crossing station. On 7th of November 1982, it was closed for parcels traffic, and in January 1988 was still listed as having a 315-meter crossing loop and telephone. The removal of track and structures started in 1991 and by the end of 1992 was just about complete. Kybunga opened 1876, closed 1981. The name Kybunga was given by Lieutenant Colonel C.R. Roberts to his farm and the township. It was supposedly a coined word without meaning. Kybunga was the first station on the extension northward from Hoyleton. When it opened, had very basic facilities. In January 1885, it was recorded that there was an excessive amount of wheat held in storage awaiting transportation, and in October that same year, there were complaints that goods were being left on the ground exposed to the elements instead of on a platform. On 7th of March 1902, the 3 members of the Blythe District Council approached the government asking for an extension of the siding and platform. In 1911, the wheat siding was extended. On 8 March 1912, a deputation of residents met with the railways commissioner and asked that improved accommodation be provided at the station and that the Port Pirie Express could stop there. They also requested that a station master could be appointed. On 23rd of September 1912, instructions for the Port Pirie Express to stop at stations where resident staff was issued. But the request to make Kybunga an unattended station was never realized. It should be mentioned that at the time the shortest way to Port Pirie, Allen Street by rail, was via Hamley Bridge, Brinkworth and Gladstone. While there were other passenger and mixed trains, the express ran on Monday, Wednesday and Saturday only. At the time of gauge conversion, electric staff instruments were located at Kybunga. Trains could be crossed at the station, but porters had to ascertain the length of train before arranging a crossing. The length of the siding between stop blocks was 680 feet. However, these arrangements were only temporary, and the electric staff instruments were removed on 2nd of December 1925, making it just one longer section from Hoyleton to Blythe. In 1928, Kybunga was listed as an unattended siding for the collection of mail, and on 28th May that year, the Hamley Bridge to Gladstone electric staff block working was discontinued, and train order working were introduced. According to the advertiser newspaper, there were 30,000 bags of wheat bill at the siding. On 29th of October 1934, on 20th of February 1938, a portable sheep race was installed. In 1966, the station facilities included a platform with ramp side loading sheep race as 3 CWT heavy portable ramp and an adjustable ramp for the loading and unloading of pigs between a road vehicle and a livestock van. Also in 1966, the station was unattended for goods consignments and all charges had to be prepaid. Although it was an unattended siding, trains could still cross there. On 29 November 1966, tenders were called for the removal of the weed shed and it was demolished shortly afterwards. In July 1977, Kybunga was listed as an unattended crossing station, and on 12 July 1981, it was closed for parcels traffic but open for passengers and train working requirements. In January 1988, was still listed as having a 315-meter crossing loop and telephone. Removal of the track and structure started in 1990, and by the end of 1992, it was just about complete. On 30 June 1982, Kybunga post office had closed. It had opened in December 1881 and had served the township for just over 100 years. Like the other stations along the line, removal of the tracks and structure were completed by the end of 1992.